It's a confusing time for Adramelech as he tries to understand who wiped out his memories. It's understandable for the Demon Lord to worry about an Inception-level event happening with his own mind. However, this isn't the only problem for Adramelech because he's also got the overpowered Calcifer to deal with. Who's also holding his demon arm as if it's the latest toy in the market. After a lot of wishful thinking, Adramelech finally identifies the memory suspect to be Lord Greed, who is later revealed to be his boss. This might be the Demon Lord's only logical conclusion, but it doesn't make any sense at the same time because he doesn't understand why his boss would do something like this. Adramelech was actually sent here to Earth so that he could save Hell and grow the demon race, but if that was the case, then he definitely needed to know about Calcifer. It only makes sense to study the enemy before launching an attack on the Death Incarnate and their Shadow Lords. However, the Demon Lord decides there's no point worrying about this right now, because this is all conjecture for the time being. He needs to put his faith in Lord Greed as of now and figure out a way to escape the overpowered Calcifer, who is not even looking at him. Adramelech figures that the demi-human has not only taken his arm, but the key of avarice along with it. In a quick moment of contemplation, the Demon Lord identifies our hero's deadly speed and intent, especially when he pulled off the attack to get rid of his arm in the first place. Realizing that he's no match for Calcifer, Adramelech says that there's no point for him to stay here any longer. He's also lost control over the Shadow Lords of the Death Incarnate, so escaping sounds like a good idea. However, the Demon Lord isn't a smooth criminal because his thoughts have already been anticipated by Calcifer. Our hero simply tells him that his plans to run away aren't going to be of any use, because he needs to get his cash from him. After all, he did just lose a lot of money simply by absorbing the Demon Lord's powers. Calcifer sounds like an angry mob leader, so Adramelech thinks about a plan B which can miraculously save him. However, none of this was even part of the equation, and he is clearly at a disadvantage. That's when Adramelech figures that he must rise to the occasion and honor the people of Hell because Lord Greed had chosen him for this mission. He reasons that Calcifer is not invincible and he needs to exploit his disadvantages if he is to come out on top. As the Demon Lord begins his brutal planning to create an opening for himself to attack the demi-human, he is interrupted once again when Calcifer calls out to him. Simply hearing the demi-human's voice makes the Demon Lord piss his metaphorical pants, but Calcifer actually has something serious to ask this time. He wants to know how Adramelech managed to sneak past him in the first place. Our hero goes on to explain that whenever an outsider like the Demon Lord would enter Earth, he would get informed about it. But this was not the case with Adramelech. This is new information to the Demon Lord who had no idea there were informants in the human world. Now, Calcifer tries to make sense of the situation and he plays around with the Demon Lord's arm while he's at it. This makes him suspect if the arm was what allowed Adramelech to sneak past him and his informants. The Demon Lord is shocked to learn that our hero doesn't even know what his arm is capable of doing. But Calcifer plays off the whole thing because it's not like the details matter to him. He has a hunch that if he destroys Adramelech's arm, then everything will go back to normal like it should. Of course, the Demon Lord doesn't look too thrilled with this suggestion, so he asks Calcifer to stop with the taunting.
Stop!
However, this only confirms our hero's suspicions, and he decides to give his theory a shot. He awakens a halo on top of his demonic form and lifts the Demon Lord's arm, which still has the creepy eyes all over it. Regardless, he gives us an evil smile and proceeds to increase pressure on the arm. Adramelech looks on in helplessness as our hero slowly crushes his arm without a care in the world. The eyes and the arm look like they're suffering from the pain. But Calcifer continues with his crushing attack, and it doesn't take long for him to complete his ruthless task with ease. And just like that, the Demon Lord's arm vanishes out of sight. Before Calcifer had destroyed the arm, he mentioned the word Nile to summon his angel halo, and this shocks Adramelech with fear and confusion. First of all, our hero has the Hell Fists to the first ever Demon King at his disposal, and on top of that, he also has a halo which is the mark of an angel. So, at the end of it all, the question still lingers in his head. Just who on earth is this person? There are no answers for Adramelech, so he hopelessly falls to the ground and laments his hopeless situation against Calcifer. He even admits defeat and confesses that he doesn't stand a chance against our hero, who is a monster compared to the Demon Lord. Adramelech proceeds to give an apology to Lord Greed, hoping for his boss to hear his last words. But then he looks up and notices all the Shadow Lords in the sky, who do not have any circular bands imprisoning them anymore. Now, we're back to the part where Calcifer had destroyed the Demon Lord's arm with his ruthless strength. A powerful aura of energy is released, and then we notice the demonic pillars cracking as a result of our hero's actions. It turns out that Calcifer's theory was right all along, as the human hostages are freed from the demonic pillars and they fall to the ground, seemingly still alive after the cult ritual. Even the Shadow Lords are freed from their imprisonment, which explains why they were falling from the sky in the first place. They are overjoyed by this new development and comment that it was about time they got freed from the Demon Lord by their bodyguard. Of course, the Shadow Lords don't waste too much time in criticizing Calcifer and decide that they should get out of here as soon as possible. However, the moment they say this, a giant demonic eye opens up in the sky and presents itself in all its ominous glory. Luckily for the Shadow Lords, this is the same demon eye that is used to transport them from the soul world to the human world, so we have clarity in its loyalties. Surrounding this demon eye are some structures that look like fingers, and then the eye awakens its supreme powers. It shoots a red beam of light that covers up all the Shadow Lords and traps them in its aura. They don't say a thing, and it's not like we can see their expressions, but the demon eye seems to be on their side and has come to take them back to the soul world where they truly belong. The Shadow Lords are glad that they don't have to face any more problems, but then we shift to a Draimlich who is very confused by the demon eye's presence. He comments that he is unable to move, and to make matters worse, it appears as if Lord Greed is plotting something sinister for a Draimlich as his head begins to hurt. This is when it strikes the Demon Lord that someone is inside his head, which means his memories are getting tampered with, just as he had suspected earlier. While this is happening, the demon eye flexes its powers and sucks up all the Shadow Lords towards it in a darkening sequence. In the middle of all this chaos, our hero just stands there acting like a total Sigma male with the halo still on top of his head. He doesn't seem to be bothered by what's happening around him, but rather takes the halo into his hands. Calcifer proceeds to remove the halo from the top of his head, which is definitely not a common sight. Our hero then spins the halo around his fingers and adjusts his neck. He goes on to curse the halo because he gets a stiff neck whenever it appears on top of him. Calcifer doesn't seem to be one of God's heavenly messengers as he twirls the halo for a bit, and then throws it up into the air. A fascinating sequence follows as the halo flies into the sky and keeps flipping for a bit, till it actually vanishes into thin air. All of this is fine, but the Shadow Lords clearly seem to be worried about what's going on with the Draimlich as they are still in a state of limbo, even though the demon eye is ready to take them away with its laser beam. In a moment of desperation, one of the Shadow Lords calls out to Calcifer and gets his attention. However, our hero simply looks back at the Shadow Lord with a look of contempt. He had actually thought that the Shadow Lords had disappeared, so he asks what they want from him now. Things start to get interesting as the Shadow Lord drops from the state of suspension and presents himself to our hero. There's no way to determine if this is Charlotte or Thomas because the Shadow Lords all look the same. Now, the Shadow Lord approaches Calcifer and says that the Death Incarnate is in serious trouble due to the recent events. He gestures in a manner that looks a bit alarming, but Calcifer simply puts his hands in his pockets and acts very calm around the red aura. The Shadow Lord is not feeling his vibe and goes on to explain that Hell has now found a way to drag out Meeker's citadel, which is essentially what the demon eye has been hinting at. Our hero shuts down his worries by saying he will do the job that has been entrusted upon him and will maintain the balance until Meeker returns himself. He doesn't look too thrilled with the prospect, and proceeds to make fun of his Shadow Lord bosses. He says that they can safely return to the Soul Society for now because he has it covered over here on Earth. He even suggests the Shadow Lords to learn a Bankai over the weekend as their new goal. A Bankai is essentially a full release power that can cause some serious damage, which is why Calcifer says it's a good idea, considering the Shadow Lords don't know how to carry out their duties. This is a bit too much sass for the Shadow Lord to take in, so he asks Calcifer if he's being serious about this. After all, Bankai is no laughing matter given its legacy and history. However, the demi-human simply grunts and strikes a pose to establish dominance. The Shadow Lord has nothing else to say, so he raises his hand and makes an escape along with the rest of the Death Incarnate. Before making a prompt exit, the Shadow Lord wishes our hero the best of luck in dealing with the situation at hand. And then we see a Draimlich in a bit of a struggle as he seems to be glitching at the moment. Calcifer takes note of the fact that the Demon Lord has been really quiet for a while, but he takes this as a sign that he will not have to spend more money on his Hellfists for the day. All of that sounds very good in theory, and then the Shadow Lords shower their praises upon Calcifer before they are sucked into the portal. However, none of these words have any effect on our hero, as he angrily calls them out for being cheap and not paying him for all his hard work. His words fall on deaf ears, as the deaf incarnate don't respond to him and get gobbled up by the demon eye and its demon fingers. And just like that, everyone vanishes into thin air, leaving the demi-human alone and still broke. He laments that he didn't even get a tip for his efforts, and reminds us that he isn't running a charity. Our hero then shifts his attention to the human hostages who have finally woken up after the cult ritual. Calcifer walks towards them and asks if they're okay, but his true intention is to get a tip from them. He says that he can't go home without any cash because he actually has a shocking reason for it. We learn that the demi-human is actually a playboy who has 2 wives and 4 hamsters to feed. As expected, the survivors are surprised to hear this, but then they get creeped out by what is first assumed to be Calcifer's devilish appearance. They scream in fear and run away from our hero. But this is actually because a Draimlich has appeared right behind him. Calcifer is confused and thinks it's a little ungrateful for the hostages to run away from the man who just saved their lives. However, he's given a taste of reality when he gets a surprise attack from the Demon Lord, who punches him with all his might. Since Calcifer did not anticipate this blow, he does not have any defense moves in place and gets smacked away. Our hero obviously survives the brutal attack, but he has to hold his neck because he starts bleeding from his mouth. It's the first time the demi-human has shown any kind of weakness, and to make things worse, a Draimlich slowly approaches him in creepy fashion. The Demon Lord seems to be even more dangerous than before and is still glitching aggressively, which means he's not in his senses right now. He starts laughing like a psycho and comments on Calcifer's ability to absorb his punches even without having to awaken his hell fists to protect him. The battle between these two is far from over as a Draimlich prepares himself for round 2, while Calcifer tries to recover and make sense of what just hit him. How is this encounter going to unfold between the Demon Lord and the demi-human? You'll just have to wait for the next video to find out. Like, share, and subscribe so you can catch the next chapter when it's out. I'll see you soon.